I want to welcome you all to our Meet the Candidates Forum. My name is Kat Peters, and I will be your moderator for the forum this afternoon. We have a 1-hour timeline, so we're going to get started and keep it moving. As you may have noticed, we are being videoed for Channel 19 replay later, or if you watch the High Def Emporium channel, it's 115. I want to thank you all for joining us today and taking advantage of the opportunity to get to know the 5 candidates who are running for the 3 voting owner board members for the first time in our community for the board of directors. When you go to the polls, you will be voting for 3 of the 5. So just, be very careful when you get to the polls. You will be voting for 3 of the 5. There will be no questions from the audience during the forum, but you will have a chance to mingle and talk with the candidates a little bit later, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm going to start off by making a number of introductions, and then we'll go on and I'll explain the format of the proceedings for this forum. Everyone who's working on the nominating and election committee or any of the other committees have been selected, and we all operate under our SCCNL, CCNRs, and bylaws. So the members on the nominating and election committee who are working for all of us are Pat McCord, Dave Robertson, Leroy Rosenberg, and myself, Pat Peters. And then we have an election task force committee, as well as several other committees that are associated with it. And I think most of those folks are probably still standing outside working to help with getting everybody in and taking tickets and going outside. But there are probably about 25 people altogether right now who are working to get us to the election polls in August. The real reason we're here are to meet all the candidates, and starting on my left and going down the row are Rick Kramer, Ben Neely, Jim Odendahl, Chuck Penzoni, and Paul Furfield. As I said, we're asking that you hold any questions that you may have. At the end of the forum, if you would like to ask anything and have it answered by all 5 of the candidates, there will be 3x5 cards on the tables just outside the door from this room. You can fill out a card, go ahead and leave it at the table, and after all 3 forums, we will review those questions. We will wind up screening them to make sure that any duplicates are taken out or something really is not applicable, and then they will be forwarded to our 5 candidates who will answer them in writing. And within the week, those questions and answers will both be posted on the SCCL website, and you can also get a hard copy printout if you prefer to look over them that way. So just keep an eye out in about a week for all that. We will spend the first few minutes with opening remarks from our candidates. They will each have 2 minutes to make their opening remarks. After that, they will each respond to 3 questions that have been prepared by the Nominating and Election Committee. All 5 candidates will respond to the first question before we move to the second question, and so on. And earlier, they drew numbers to see what their answering order would be for all of those questions. And they have 90 seconds to answer a question when it's their turn. And then at the end of all those questions, they will each have 3 minutes to make closing remarks. And then I'll just briefly take a minute to close the forum, and then you'll have a chance to talk to the committee members, the candidates, whatever need to ask some questions on the cards. We'll get going with the opening statements, and we'll start with Rick and work our way down. Go ahead, Rick.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's good. It's actually great to see that people are interested enough in this process to show up on a nice, sunny Friday afternoon. It occurred to me that there are 3 questions. If I was sitting out there, there are 3 questions that I'd want answered by the people sitting up here. Those questions are, who am I? Why am I running? And what will I do if I get elected? The answer. Who am I? Rick Kramer is my name. I've been here since October of 2011. I was a Todd T. RAC rep 2012 and 13. I've been a frequent contributor to and acted as associate editor of the Living Magazine for the last 2 years. And a couple of years ago, I was a founding member of a group of informed owners, GIO, which many people around here are familiar with. We did a lot of informational meetings for owners last year. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I really like this place. I love this place. And I think we're at a critical point in our history here where I think I've got something to contribute to help preserve and protect what we have here. I say preserve and protect. Preserve the lifestyle, the amenities, the assets. Protect the financial stability of the place so that none of us have to endure any financial surprises down the road. I cannot, since we're going to be, whoever's elected will be 3 of a 7-member board, we can't promise anything in particular about what we're going to be able to accomplish or not accomplish. What I personally am committed to are 3 things: transparency, accountability, and honesty. 3 things that we've been sorely missing the last 7 years under the current administration. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I'm Ben Neely, and I can tell you a little bit about myself. Like many of you, I moved here. I moved here from the north. Well, North Charlotte. I'm from Atlanta. I attended Georgia State and Georgia Tech. I've been here since October 2006. Probably a little bit of time. Love this place. When I moved here, my first wife had just died. Since I've been here, I met a second wife, Marie, who's on the front row here, and we married in 2010. Okay. How'd you get that in? This is an awesome place to live, and after moving here, I started out initially working at the front gate for the HOA. I was the guy with the ponytail, and from there I moved to the front desk. I worked at the front desk for a while. I was part of the original staff at the Lake House. I know what goes on behind closed doors and know where the bodies, well, some of the bodies. This is an awesome place to live, and I really feel it's an opportunity for me to get up here and be one of your representatives for the board. I'm getting the high sign. Thank you.
My name is Jim Odendahl, and I'd like to give you a little of my background that I think qualifies me to work as a board member. I'm a civil engineer with a master's in environmental engineering and experience in regulatory agencies, 4 with the state of Illinois and 11 with the state of Missouri. In Missouri, I ended up as the director of the Division of Environmental Quality, with some 400 employees responsible for management and budget. In 1980, I moved to Arkansas with Weyerhaeuser Company. I worked for them for 21 years, 11 in Arkansas and the rest out in Tacoma. I ended up working there with their hazardous waste and Superfund division, leading a small team that had about $100 million worth of responsibility for cleanups, working with a lot of legal, technical, and contractors across the country. Well, in Washington, I was elected to the local board of the HOA and then spent 2 years as president. After retirement in 2001, we were searched for a place to move, and we moved to Sun City, Carolina Lakes. Made a commitment in 2006 and moved in 2007. Since I've been here, I've been president of the Computer Club for 2 years, active, Performing Arts Club for president for 2 years, Community Garden Club, I was president there for 2 years, designed and helped build the boxes that are out there. I work with the Fresh Produce Club that sells Farmers Market every Wednesday. Tailgater team leader, have been for about 4 years, and RAC member for the Code, 2 years as a member, 2 years as an alternate. Thank you.
Hopefully I can get this right this time. Apparently I talk a little bit too softly. Hi everybody, my name is Chuck Pinzoni. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And before I retired earlier this year, I spent over 25 years as an attorney, 20 years as an attorney environmental attorney with a major oil company. Part of my job, I got moved around to a number of different places. I've lived in Cleveland, Detroit, and back to Cleveland, and then Chicago, and down to Houston. But when my wife and I finally decided to retire, this is where we chose. We closed on the house in January of 2011, spent a little bit of time here when we could. Late January, late 2012, my wife decided to spend 3 months here while I was out traveling for business. And when I came to pick her up, she decided it was time to move here permanently. Her exact words were, "I'm moving to South Carolina with or without you." So we made the choice and moved here last May. And as I said, I retired earlier this year, and my wife did in April. What that means, of course, is that we're fairly new residents. We weren't here back when the board was this big dark box and information may have gone in, nothing came out. I don't know what happened because I wasn't here. But we're here for the long haul now, and we want to be part of this process. We want to see this community get better information out of the board. We're at a point where we're entering the most important point for this board's existence, which is transitioning from an owner-owned or owner-controlled board to a homeowner-controlled board. And we want to be part of that process. We need people who are willing to work with the current board, learn what's happened, figure out where we are now, and help guide the board in the direction that ultimately the community wants it to take. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
I'm Paul Perfield. I'd love to represent you on the board of directors. I've been here since July 2011. There's a young lady in the second row in front of me pointed out to me that I'm 6'9", and yes, I did play college basketball. So to use my time allotment for your best interest, and realizing that I'm an accountant and an auditor by trade, I'll give you what I think are my qualifications to represent you on your board of directors. 36 years in Big Four public accounting, about half of those as a partner. Prior experience with the Board of Education for 5 years, 3 years as president, and in my client-serving responsibilities with the Big Four firm I was with, I serve Fortune 500 boards and senior managements of large companies. I think a lot of that information is transferable. I spent time as a member of the group of informed owners that some of you may know about, and spent hundreds of hours, I could say honestly, looking at issues and doing things in the background. And I was also one of 2 representatives appointed by the GIO to meet with Pulte and HOA management to try to get issues on the table and get them resolved. So I think, in my view, that gives me pretty good qualifications to serve you on your board. Hopefully you'll think so as well. And thanks for attending.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and start with our first question. And we cheated a little bit because it's really 2 questions. It's a 2-parter. It's, what is your vision of SCCL in 5 years? And if elected to the board, what do you see as your role in getting there? And then do the first straw.
My vision for 5 years from now is, 1, we will have had 2 additional elections for board members. In those 2 elections, we would have had 100 candidates on each election applying for board members. In addition, my vision is that the transition would be completed from relative from the builder to the resident control of the board, and all areas of disagreement resolved. The community will be prosperous, it will look good, our property values will have increased, and our monthly dues will not have increased. That's my part to get there. With the government, I was an investigator for a number of years. I investigated a lot of complaints and worked to resolve differences without litigation. So I'm used to dealing with problems. Thank you.
Chuck is next. Goes to Chuck. The other Chuck.
Thank you. This question for me was one of the hardest ones, because when I think of vision, I think it's something that needs to be developed and shared by the board, by the community itself. But I think it's fair to say that what I'd like to see is a community that people are proud to live in and want to be here. And also a community that gets open, honest communication from the board on issues that are of interest to the homeowners. And for those homeowners that aren't really all that interested in hearing what's going on, they should feel comfortable that their board is protecting their interests as well as the interests of all the homeowners. So that's what I see ultimately as my vision for SSCL. And if I'm elected, I'm going to work hard to make sure that there's open, honest communication with homeowners, and also to protect the interests of all homeowners, not just those that are represented by, that are on the board. Thank you.
Jim is next.
In 5 years, I see Sun City, Carolina Lakes continuing to be a viable, friendly, attractive place for retirees to live and for our families to visit. I see continued maintenance of our amenity centers and property values. I see Sun City, Carolina Lakes as an appreciated and accepted member of the larger Lancaster County population. My role as a board member will be to work to ensure that we have a competent, capable management firm in place with experienced and valued employees to enforce CCRs. I will work with local elected officials concerning potential impacts on Sun City, Carolina Lakes, including development along 521, and the discussion that I've heard of possible incorporation, for which I've not heard a compelling reason for incorporating Indian land. Please note that Sun City alone will be a larger city than all but about 70 incorporated areas within South Carolina. Thank you.
My vision of Sun City in 5 years is to have it be a desirable place to live and continue to be that. I'd also like to improve the desirability while keeping your monthly HOA dues as reasonable as possible. Desirability means many things that a board member would have to deal with: appearance of the community, well-maintained facilities and amenities, and my role to some extent would probably be to keep the financial house in order so that we know how the money's coming in and where it's going to. My role: create the foundation needed to manage and operate the people, systems, and everything else here, to essentially create a well-oiled machine, I think was as Chuck said previously, so that owners that will be able to rely on their board to do the right thing. I'll try to analyze and prioritize issues and work with the other board members to get things done. And the other thing to consider is that things may change in the future. We may have to change the way we think about our facilities as our population changes. Thank you.
All the way back down the road to Rick now.
Uh, 5 years from now, I see Sun City much the same as it is today, but a lot better. Still the same beautiful, vibrant place that it is today, still offering the same amenities and the lifestyle we all came here for, but with all the problems bubbling beneath the surface here, roads, lakes, buildings, the way the finances have been handled, all that stuff resolved. I see us with not one, but 2 functioning amenity centers. Maybe even with enough parking, not sure about that one. But this place, this is a great place to live. There's no reason, we want to improve it. We want to preserve it, we want to protect it. There's no reason to dramatically change it. My role in doing that, I didn't mention in my opening, I spent 30 years as a corporate lawyer. I want to be your advocate on the board. I think that's what's been missing for us. We have had no voice. We've had no one to advocate for our interests and represent our interests on the board. And I think that's something that I can do very effectively, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Rick. Next question is, what do you feel is a single major issue facing SCCL's transition from builder to resident control? And if elected to the board, how would you mitigate this issue? And we start with Paul.
I think the single major issue we need to deal with here as a board member is nothing will happen unless Pulte agrees. Even after the election of 3 owners, we're still going to have 4 Pulte employed board members, so they'll still have the majority. It goes without saying what's best for Pulte's bottom line isn't always what's best for us as owners. On the bright side, with owners on the board and on committees, we'll finally get access to data that we didn't have before. You'll have full access to data that you need to carry out your fiduciary responsibility as a board owner. And the owner board members will need to use facts and the power of reason to help the 4 Pulte board members see both sides of an issue. Admittedly, that's going to be a big challenge, but it's something we have to do. I think I'm up to that. Why me? What are my qualifications? Served on a board of education in New York State for 5 years, 3 as president. Always a challenging environment. And if you don't successfully collaborate with folks, you're not going to get anywhere. My professional life served large Fortune 500 client board of directors and senior management. I think that accounting knowledge is useful to the board. I've worked with HOA and local Pulte management, and I think I'm strong enough to be heard, and I'm also willing to listen. So hopefully that will give me the abilities I need to be a good board member. Thank you.
Then is second.
I think the single biggest issue we have is communication. It's a two-way street. We're communicating and Pulteism. That's what's happening. And how to resolve this, we have to get them to listen and to respond. Once we have a majority on the board of resident members, and we'll have better access to do that. In the meantime, it will be up to the resident managers there to do a little arm twisting with the Pulte representatives on the board. That can be done. I have a good background as an investigator for over 30 years with the federal government. We're going to have to build cases to remind particularly board members what's going on, remind them of their fiduciary responsibilities, and as we get closer and closer to Pulte actually leaving, then they'll have to start thinking about the consequences of what's going on. That's assuming we get and can find the right information. Thank you.
Rick is next.
I wish I could give you a different answer, but yes, the biggest problem is the fact that even when 3 owners, 3 of the 5 people sitting up here are seated, Pulte will still hold 4 seats on that board, and they've advised us that they don't plan on giving up that majority until they build and sell the last house here. So that's a problem. A large connected problem is the conflict of interest that's built into the structure, because we've got 4 people on the majority side of our board who are on the one hand employed by Pulte, and on the other hand, they have a legal duty to represent the best interest of everybody that lives in this community. As we get closer to transition, the gulf between, or the gap between the 2 sides of their personality becomes larger and larger. Because as we get closer to transition, the owner interest is in uncovering problems and solving them, regardless of the cost to Pulte. From Pulte's point of view, they want to get out of here as cleanly and cheaply as possible. So these guys are going to be torn in 2 very different directions. It's our job to remind them repeatedly that they have a legal duty to represent us, regardless of the fact that they work for Pulte, and to make that clear to them literally every day. Thank you very much.
Chuck?
Obviously, we've heard some very good issues, and we're all aware of other issues that are out there. The transition financial reserve study, questions surrounding that. There's some what I call subsidence, erosion issues that are out there. But we're aware of those, and to me, that lessens the concern that I have, because once we know about them, we can investigate, we can mitigate, we understand what's involved, or should be able to understand. We can quantify it, so we know what to expect. What worries me is what's out there that we don't know about. There's likely to be something, there may not be, but we don't know what we don't know. And that's what concerns me. As one of the board members, I'll work with the board, I'll work with community interested homeowners that are looking at some of these issues, try to identify what's out there and make sure that we've got them addressed, mitigated, understood before we get to the point that Pulte pulls out. Thank you.
And that brings us to Jim.
It's difficult to come up with a single important issue, but one of the things we need to develop is a smooth and transparent transition from the budget and reserve fund details for the HOA resident board members. Now, if elected, I want to thoroughly understand the budget process and how the numbers are developed. What are all the issues that are in the past? Past audits, the reserve fund, engineering, whatever. Willing to listen, to learn, and ask questions about anything that's not clear or that I don't understand. And I always seek qualified independent help and advice when needed. I know a lot of residents have already worked on a number of these issues, and I will be seeking their advice and counsel whenever possible. Thank you.
Just hold on to the mic, because you're up for the next question first. What one trait do you possess that you believe best qualifies you for a position on the SCCL Board of Directors?
My belief is that my engineering experience and education qualifies me to understand. My entire education and work experience has been to find solutions to problems. That's what engineers do. We don't create them, or we try not to. I've learned to deal with the facts. I've learned to deal with what is, not what I would like to have it have been. I work to gather all the facts before committing to a decision whenever possible. However, I can make decisions without facts when I have to. As noted in my opening remarks, I have a long history of working with regulations, that's the CCRs, legal experts, technical experts, contractors, politicians. And I have budget and management experience and a proven record and ability to work cooperatively with a variety of technical, legal, and political people. Thank you.
Ben, you're next.
I think my qualifications really is my experience as an investigator. I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've analyzed things, I've incorporated and come up with a recommendation. Oftentimes there's rights on both sides, and you try to kind of compromise. So I'm used to digging through data. The other thing is that we need really to stay focused, to just stay in the game. I've faced all sorts of turmoils and tragedies just like you guys have. And that's key to getting along in a difficult situation and difficult circumstances. And that's what the board members are going to have to do, because they're going to go in and be outgunned initially. I have an easygoing attitude. I've dealt with all sorts of people, all levels of work in my career. I feel I would make an excellent member. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Rick is next.
As far as experience goes, as I said, I spent 30 years as a corporate lawyer counseling executives and boards and working closely with them on a daily basis. So I certainly know how that process works. As far as trait goes, which is really what the question was, I would have to say the ability to stay calm and focused on the job at hand, even amidst conflict. There's going to be conflict on this board. There's no question about that, really. As I said before, we have a very different agenda. We, as owners, speaking collectively as owners, we have a very different agenda than the Pulte board members do. And we need to remain focused on that and really work toward what's in the best interest of every owner in this community, even under adverse circumstances. And I think I have a lot to offer in that area. Thank you.
Microphone goes to Chuck.
Thank you. One of my roles as an environmental attorney was to handle disputes with property owners and business owners depending on certain situations. For example, an underground storage tank leaks and gasoline gets on a neighboring property, you typically have a heated discussion with somebody, and it may or may not end up in litigation. But regardless of whether it went to litigation, most of these disputes got resolved through negotiation or mediation. And over literally hundreds of these things, I've learned I tend to be fairly level-headed, tend to be fairly objective, but more importantly, I think that the big key I learned is that I'm a good listener. Listening is a skill that not everybody has. You may hear what somebody says, but you're not really paying attention to how they say it, or when they say it, or quite frankly, what's not being said. And those are the kind of skills I think that the homeowner representatives are going to need in order to really be effective, to understand what's out there and make sure that the transition goes as smoothly as possible. Thank you.
And Paul is next.
Okay, I think my best trait is just getting to the point and having the experience to do so. One of the things a board member has to do is, I can tell you about all my financial experience again, board expertise, board experience, and working with Pulte and HOA representatives. But one of the things you also need to do is get to the point and figure out what's most important. So there might be 15 items on the list, but 2 of them make up 99% of what you really need to be concerned about. I think my training, personal and professional expertise gets me there. And when you talk about access to data, we're going to get access to data as board members that we haven't had before. If you want somebody good to find data and to evaluate it, hire an auditor. So, thank you.
That concludes the question part of the program. We'll start with closing remarks, and Paul's going to kick that off, and then we'll just work our way right back to Rick.
Okay, I've talked a little bit about my GIO experience. A couple things we were able to accomplish. 2014 budget was the first time that our 2014 budget was compared to the 2013 actual results. So that you could evaluate the budget for 2014 and see how well things were done in 2013. Small victory, but I think an important one. And I was able to work with Jessica in her role as executive director of the HOA to get that done. The other point to make is just as an example of what I've been a part of is the golf course is owned by the golf course. The land under the golf course is owned by the golf course operator. Golf course operator has a right, unilateral, solely at their choice, to transfer the property back to Sun City owners, okay, like us. The question was, is there a purchase price attributable to that? There was an agreement, and Pulte claimed that there was a lot of confidential business information in there between they and the golf course operator. They didn't want to show us anything. So I like to think I came up with the idea of saying, all right, show us the version of the agreement, or show us the sections of the agreement that deal with the golf course purchase. that was agreed to by Pulte, and we actually found out that the price on transition was zero. It was nothing. We also had Pulte's attorney confirm in a written representation that everything that we needed to see related to this buyback option, we did see. I think I've got a commitment to this community. I spent hundreds of hours as a member of the GIO researching stuff. A lot of times you don't see the auditors because we're in the back room doing something, but I've gone through a lot of data and spent a lot of time with the documents. You know, when I talk about the small victories we had, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of other things that are in process, and there's probably a lot of other issues that we don't know about, you know, in terms of just getting access to data. So I hope you elect me as a board member to solve the problems. And my trusted campaign advisor is making me say this, that if you vote for me, I will stand tall for Sun City. My only other promise is no more tall jokes, I promise.
Thank you. I will, something you probably don't hear often from lawyers, I will keep this very short. One of the oddities of life is today I could walk into a room and forget why I went in there. It's very frustrating. But I vividly remember watching a television show about 40 years ago. It was My Three Sons. And in that show, that particular episode, Ernie was running for student council, and he gave one of the best campaign speeches I have ever heard, and I'd like to borrow that here. Vote for me. Thank you.
I have been told that I'm a man of few words. I try to live by the maximum that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. Also try to avoid situations where a conversation is nothing more than 2 people bouncing noise off each other. My background has prepared me with the ability to listen well, to gather the facts, and make intelligent and logical decisions that are in the best interest of the community. Can I satisfy everyone? In a word, no. There are too many possible conflicts and difference of opinion. However, I have worked with many groups, and as we come together as a team, we can find ways to make decisions that are in the best interest of the entire community. I believe I have the technical, regulatory, management, and budget experience to be an effective Sun City Carolina Lakes board member. Finally, my personal email is on the Sun City Carolina Lakes website, jpodendahl@gmail.com. Send me any questions. I'll answer the best I can. I'd appreciate your vote, and thank you for your attention today.
I'm told we have 70 applications to work at the front gate for $8 an hour. We had 5 applications for the board. There's a lot of shakers and doers out there. There will be other board elections. Please, get out of your comfort area. We need more participation as candidates. In closing, I want to thank you for attending here. I will do my best if you choose to elect me as one of your board members. I have lived here for 8 years now, and this is the most wonderful place I feel that I've ever lived. But I do encourage you to get active in this and get involved. I'm not a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, or anything. Like most of you, I earned my retirement by working a lot of years for salary. I didn't make fat bonuses. I can represent your interest because I'm one of you. I've been there. I know what you go through. So I'd appreciate it if you would support me in this endeavor and elect me as one of your representatives to our board. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank the nominating committee, and I think everybody should thank the nominating committee for all the hard work they put in. What I have to offer you are a couple of things. Number one, Paul mentioned the whole GIO thing. I actually put together the group that a group of people that ultimately turned into the GIO. And Paul and I actually worked together on a lot of the stuff that he talked about, including those meetings with Mr. Cherry and Mr. Garcia. What I can really offer you is an in-depth understanding of what goes on in this community, an in-depth understanding of the issues that are going to confront us as we go forward and that the board's going to have to deal with, and a professional background that will make it a little bit easier for me to deal with this stuff. No, you certainly don't have to be a lawyer to deal with this stuff, but you have to be analytical, you have to be rational, you got to be able to deal with this stuff as you confront it, and I think I've got the ability to do that. I've been here for less than 3 years, and I think my commitment to serving this place is pretty clear. I spent 2 years as pod rep for Pod T. The highlight of that period was leading an owner-inspired effort to get the Lakeview Trail paved, which was successful. I've worked extensively for the magazine and edited the magazine, and again, the GIO thing. I really want to make this place all it can be. And the fact that we've been locked out of management for 7 years is unfortunate, but this is a new age, and this is an opportunity for us, if we've got advocates on the board, to actually get things done and represent the interests of owners in the best possible way. I would appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, gentlemen. The names again are Rick Kramer, Ben Neely, Jim Odendahl, Chuck Pinzoni, and Paul Perfield. And I want to thank every one of the candidates, our committee members, and our audience for joining us today and getting a chance to know them a little bit better. I really want you to encourage and support our candidates because they're going to be working very hard over the next month to earn your vote at the polls. Just a reminder that there are the 3x5 cards right outside the door on those tables. Fill one out if you have a question, please, and leave it at the table. And we have a good half an hour, 40 minutes. If you want to mingle, talk to your candidates, spend some time with them. If you have questions for any of the committee members, please take time to do that. And the Meet the Candidates Forum is now adjourned. Thank you.